Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again it is time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly video that I put out where I ask you guys some type of question related to the firearms culture, community, politics, or news, maybe even some gear, and I put it in my community tab of my YouTube page. I ask you guys to vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can decide who the best commenters are of that week, and then I take some time to talk about them and make a video on it. So this week's poll question, I believe, is number 13. Wow, we got a lot of these. Time really flies. But this one dealt with how you use YouTube when it comes to your firearms decisions. Now, this was one I was really kind of interested in, and I think in many ways that of all the questions I've asked, I was most interested in. I'm going to call BS on this one because I don't think many people are being honest. But let's dive into the question and your results. This week's question is, as a very small YouTube firearms personality, I am fascinated when viewers tell me I influence their decision on a firearm. I too have found myself turning to other YouTube personalities to help me in my buying decisions. In general, do you turn to YouTube reviews and personalities often before buying or avoiding a gun, and how much credence or faith do you put into them? Well, the reason I was asking this question is I think I'm kind of guilty of both, okay? So while I tell people one of the themes of my channel is do not have YouTube gun heroes, I actually think it's relatively unhealthy, and I'll explain why. In my personal life and my business life as a professional musician, I've had the opportunity to play with quite a few A-list celebrities. I've got to meet them, and one of the things I've discovered about myself is I really don't get starstruck. Regardless of how famous the person is or how well known they are, I get to meet them on an individual basis, and they're just another human being like myself. I'm there to do a job, and that's it. They're nobody special. Just because maybe they've had a hit or are very well known doesn't necessarily make them a better human being or have any type of knowledge that I don't have access to. They're just somebody that happened to find something in life that has made them popular and famous. The same thing I think can go for YouTube. Now, granted, there's a lot of people out there that are very well knowledgeable and very well versed in particular aspects of firearms. But there are also people out there that know how to communicate well and are absolute knuckleheads on the topics that they speak of. I see this in my professional life where there are people that I call having the gift of gab, which means they can say absolutely nothing for an hour or 2 hours and everybody is captivated by their stories or their presentation style. I notice that there's some YouTubers out there that are like that. I don't think that they really contribute anything to the guns they're reviewing or the topics that they're talking about, but because they have a very particular voice, mannerisms, or how they speak, or even the stories that they tell, they just come across as being very interesting and very genuine. Now, all of this stuff is up to subjective taste. The YouTubers that I like, or maybe the ones that I think are fake, or maybe the ones that you like, or vice versa. That is okay if we disagree. Now, I am not here to talk about any individual YouTube personalities personally. I don't like to do that, as I hope they don't talk about me. As I said, YouTube is a very personal experience, both from a creator standpoint and a consumer standpoint. So I want you to go out and enjoy the content that you enjoy. Don't listen to my opinions on them. If I say I don't like this channel and you do, well, I don't want to influence that. I don't want to take away something that you enjoy just because I have some silly opinion. And as I said, vice versa. This goes in both directions. Now, speaking of the internet personalities, the reason I say it's unhealthy is when I was younger and just starting out in YouTube, I was very influenced by many of the big channels, and they got me to buy firearms. Sometimes I would completely agree with their decisions, and sometimes I feel like maybe I rushed on the judgment and I took faith in what they were saying, and I bought a gun, I regretted it, and ended up selling it. Well, I'm going to show you 3 guns that I personally bought that were influenced by YouTubers and what YouTubers influenced me. The first one would be probably the earliest one that I can remember, that when I saw it on a YouTube video, I had to go buy it. And the video was by Hickok 45s. Now, I haven't watched Hickok in years now, so this had to have been probably back in 2014 maybe, or something about that time. But anyway, this is the SIG P226 Mark 25. I bought this because he had it in one of his videos, and I thought it was the absolute coolest gun at the time. I loved all of the markings on it. I thought SIG just did some type of amazing job on it. It was just really cool, the history. I had to have one. I never shot one before, never even owned a 226, but I went out and bought one. Now this is one I don't regret. SIG makes amazing things, and the Mark 25 is just an awesome and cool gun. Another YouTuber that has influenced my buying decisions over time, not as much lately, and I am still subscribed to him, is Coleon Noir. Now this is an FNX 45 Tactical in black. Now I've always wanted one in flat dark earth. Now one of my local subscribers who I talk to a lot, David, he tells me that his contacts at FN say that for every 4 that they make in flat dark earth, they only make 1 in black. Now whether that's true or not, I don't know. Coleon Noir's was also in black. I always liked the FDE one though. But I purchased this gun, or actually I traded for it, because of his review and his thoughts on it. And him talking about how this was just an amazing tactical 45. So once again, a gun I never shot and didn't even really know about before that video, but I was so influenced and I trusted their opinion so much, I had to go out and get. And this is another one I really don't regret buying. The last one I'm going to show you is my B&T APC, and I bought one of these, actually my original one in 45, which I still have, the Generation 1. This is the Pro version, the Generation 2. I bought this as soon as I saw the Military Arms channel put out their very first B&T video. I was blown away by it. I've always been fascinated by subguns and always wanted HK stuff, but when this came out and I saw everything he talked about and broke it down, I knew I had to have one, and I was hooked on B&T products from that day. So all of these 3 that I mentioned today are very positive experiences, things that YouTube channels introduced to me, whether or not they were being paid by the companies, which I don't really think that they were. Maybe they were just the guns on loan. Many of these were, I think, before the channels really became the huge juggernauts that they are today. So possibly these were honest reviews. But they've all been very positive. Now there are a few that I have bought and didn't like, or I thought that they were complete pieces of junk or just were not for me. Now off the top of my head, I really can't think of any. And I've also seen a couple of reviews that they were very negative about a gun, telling you to avoid it, but my personal experiences with those firearms were actually very, very positive. So I have changed the way that I use YouTube now when it comes to my personal buying decisions, in that I use it to find out information on new guns that are coming out on the market more than I use them for the opinions of people that I trust. In fact, the more that I've learned about firearms, and this is not to be snooty or to be elitist, I kind of feel like some of the reviewers don't know as much about the guns as I do. Now, I'm not saying I'm an expert on every firearm, it's just I do my research. I like to learn everything about a firearm, how it operates, its history, all the variants. And sometimes these personalities, they get a gun, they go out and shoot it, they blow up watermelons or whatever, and they just have fun with it, and that's awesome and great. But you ask them, tell me about the metallurgy, or tell me about the history of the design, or why did they change this in the extractor? They don't really know. They just know they have a really cool gun. But I like to get into the nitty-gritty and the small details about a firearm, and so anything that I'm interested in, I learn it to the smallest and most intrinsic detail about it. So the things that I'm interested in, I like to think I know a lot about it. So I've discovered that a lot of YouTube personalities are just that. They're just personalities more than they are reviewers. And that's one thing that I strive here on my channel. I personally know I'm not the easiest on the eyes. I don't have the best presentation style. But I like to think that the people that are interested in the same type of guns that I'm in can come to my channel and hopefully get an honest review. I tell you guys whether it's a gun from my collection. I tell you if it's a gun that's on loan. And I try to be as honest as I can. And even if I say I really like a gun, I say what I like about it, what I don't like about it, why I like it, why I don't like it. And I also try to tell you, don't trust me. Go out and shoot it for yourself, especially if it's a very expensive gun. I say go out to a range if you can find one that can rent it, or if you know somebody that has one, go shoot it before you buy it. And I even say on the negative reviews, it's okay if you disagree with me. Still, take an opportunity. If you can find a range that will let you rent it, go rent it. Go shoot it for yourself. You may absolutely love it. It may fit your hand. It may be perfect for the philosophy of use that you need a firearm for. And my opinion is irrelevant, but hopefully I introduced you to that firearm, got you interested in it, or made you think about it in a different way. So that's my thoughts on this, but let's dive into your results. So with 3% of the vote, and by the way, we have 703 votes in this week's poll, we have, whatever my favorite gun tube hero tells me to do, I will. Only 3%. I always listen, but will use other sources and decide for myself. 86%, the biggest lopsided result in the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week history. I only buy based off of personal experiences, not YouTube, 5%. None whatsoever, they are all paid shills, 3%. And something else, tell me in the comments below, 3%. So as I said, this is the most lopsided poll. This reminds me a lot of those personality tests that you take online. I think that a lot of times people will answer the question either the way they think they want others to answer, or the way that they wish that they really were, instead of the way that they actually are. And what I mean by that is being a content creator, I get to see every comment that comes on my channel. I have a little app on my phone, it's called the YouTube Creator Studio, and as anybody comments on any video, I get to see the comment. And I can also go back and organize comments, see what people are saying, and I also get emails, I get Instagram messages constantly. And so I kind of see a different side of this than most people that are just consumers of YouTube. And I'm always perplexed, and I guess I'm a little bit dismayed in the firearms world about how mean people can be, or how they simply follow what other people say without actually thinking about it themselves or coming to their own opinions. So we're going to kind of go through each one of these, and I'll kind of tell you what I'm talking about here. So whatever my favorite gun tube hero tells me to do, I will do. This is why I say don't have GunTube or YouTube heroes, because I think too many people do. And I'm guilty of it myself, especially in my younger days. There's still people I like and still people that I trust, but I never take anybody completely on face value. I have discovered though that there's a lot of people out there that as the trends in the firearms community occur, whatever the big channel is that is known for that particular firearm, whatever they say is gospel, that they will talk about it, they go online and they post about it. They might not even own the gun, but because one channel or one person that they have a lot of respect for and really like reviews the gun, says something positive or negative, it is gospel forever, and that is it. That God has spoken and there is no dissent on that opinion. And if you do, you are a horrible person. I just get so many mean comments where I'll say something about, I don't know, a Glock or an AK or whatever rifle, whatever brand of AR-15, and they'll say, well, whoever, and they'll always post a link to another YouTube channel. He says it's a piece of junk, you need to go watch it. I just delete those comments immediately because I don't want my comment sections just filled with a bunch of links to other channels, right? We're here to talk about my opinions in the guns that I'm reviewing. But it just shows that they don't know anything about the gun. And I'll ask them, do you own this gun? Oh no, I've never even shot one. I wouldn't hold it. It's a piece of junk. It's gonna blow up in your hand. Okay, well, you haven't even held it. So how do you know? I'm just curious, you know, did they explain how they got the gun for review or why they're reviewing it or whatever? I find that I can usually trust some people to a certain degree, but I don't always agree with everything that they say. So I like to formulate my own opinions. But I find that when you believe that one person is only speaking gospel, that it becomes almost toxic, that not only is your perspective skewed, that you also end up treating other people in the firearms community and the Second Amendment community with disgust if they disagree. And you almost alienate yourself. You become toxic, mean, and you might not even see it. And you don't realize how you're affecting other people that otherwise would support you, and we should all be supporting each other, being Second Amendment advocates. The next one, I always listen but will use other sources and decide for myself, 86%. Now this is the one I said I'm gonna call BS on, okay? Because just from being a content creator, I see how people will only speak the gospel, quote unquote, of the other channels on pretty much any review that I do. Most of the time, the comments are, this other person said this. Go watch this video. Instead of, hey, I bought one of these, I shot it, I didn't like it, or I disagree with you because the problem you had, I didn't have. Those comments are a lot fewer than the ones that are just out there saying, you need to go watch this person's video. It really kind of grinds my gears, shall we say, over time. It's like, well, go shoot it yourself. Go experience this yourself or formulate an opinion. Stop listening to other people and just taking what they say as absolute gospel. So I believe that many people think they're in this category, and that's why the number is so lopsided at 86%. But I can tell you, I would say that most people follow whatever gun channel that they like. Whatever gun Hickok 45 is shooting, and if he likes these, it's the greatest gun ever, we have to go buy it. Or let's say the military arms channel. One of the things I like about his channel, or he used to do them a lot more, I think he calls them the gauntlet tests, and they're for entertainment purposes only. He says it, and I appreciate that, where he'll take a gun and he'll put it through like the elements test and see if the gun functions. And whether a gun passes or fails doesn't necessarily mean, and he even says this, doesn't mean it's a good gun or a bad gun. But when a gun fails the gauntlets test or the elements test because it gets a ton of mud in it, people think, oh, it's a piece of junk. It's like, no, 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 this isn't a scientific test at all. It's just for entertainment purposes only. I like that kind of stuff. I really do. I like to watch it, but I don't take it as absolute gospel. So, but I think a lot of people do. And they may say, I don't, but based on the comments and my interactions with a lot of people, they actually do. I think they answered this question the way they think they want other people to think of them. All right, then I only buy based off of personal experiences, not YouTube, 5%. I actually think this one should be a little bit higher because granted, we all go to YouTube because we want to learn about the newest, latest, greatest stuff, but our personal experiences really are what matters. So many times I'll borrow one of the guns, like my CZs, like for the channel when I started to review the CZ pistols. I never owned CZs before. I borrowed my next door neighbors. I borrowed some of my local subscribers. And I'm like, dang, I've been missing out. And I was not influenced in any way whatsoever. I've never really seen a negative CZ review. I've seen very positive CZ reviews. I was just never interested until I personally shot it. So then I ended up going out and buying a couple now. So that's one of the ways that I've been influenced in just personal experience. The next one, none whatsoever. They are all paid shills, 3%. This is the one that I laugh about so much. I cannot tell you how much I have been called a shill. Now, I wish I was a shill because I would definitely take money. I mean, come on, B&T. I know you watch my videos. I mean, if you want to pay me to be a B&T spokesman, I'll be happy to do that. Actually, you don't have to pay me. Just give me access to some of your awesome firearms. But pretty much everything you see on my channel, I either personally own, that I bought with my hard-earned money, that I earned not in the firearms or YouTube community, or they're on loan to the channel. They're not mine. And so that's usually when I'm very positive about a gun. I'm told you're a shill. You must work for this company. No, I'm literally a dude out in his garage making this poor content. I don't know if you guys have seen my other videos, but I mean, I like to think my quality's gone up, but I'm just a guy. I stutter. I'm not that great of a personality. I'm bald. People made fun of that. I got a little bit of a dad bod. I am not the perfect role model to be a spokesman for a gun company. And I'm not even in the firearms industry. I don't have an FFL. I'm just a collector. That's all that I am. So it's so funny when people come on my channel and say, you're a shill for this, or you're a shill for that. But I don't know. And I know that people accuse other channels of that as well. But just being on this side of the camera, I can tell you most of the time that's not the case. And I do appreciate, though, when personalities say, I got this gun for free, or I did this, it's in for review from the channel. So at least you know that that person is being upfront and honest. So maybe if they say they got the gun for free, and they want to continue that relationship, you can take what they say maybe with a grain of salt, or sometimes they'll flat out say, I got this in for review, the company said I completely can destroy it, but I got to send it back. Well, you go, okay, well, they're not getting the gun for free, they're not being paid, and they're told to destroy the gun, see if they can make it fail. Well, maybe I have a little bit more faith in that review. I don't know. It's up to you. It's all kind of on a case-by-case basis. And finally, something else, tell me in the comments below. And so some people talked about aspects where it's kind of a mixture of the two or three of the things that I listed. Some say they just pretty much go into the gun shop, their local gun shop, and just find what's on the shelf, see if they like it, and buy that. They don't really go to YouTube for any other reasons. They might go after they buy a gun, but that's what that was. So let's now get to your comments, and we're going to go to the top rated comment for this week, which comes from XJRob85, who says, I just buy whatever interests me. I use YouTube to keep up to date on what is available and to learn about the firearms I like. I think that's an absolute perfect comment, and that really summarizes much of the way that I consume YouTube as well. It keeps me up to date on what the newest, latest, and greatest stuff is. But I want to add to what he says. For me personally, I also like to learn about firearms that I don't like. One of the great stories that I always tell my students, and I always have to mention this, people always ask me, what do you do for a living? I'm a music teacher. One of the stories I always enjoy telling my students is of a very famous interview that Leonard Bernstein, who, if you guys don't know who Leonard Bernstein is, a famous conductor, composer, arranger, he wrote the music to West Side Story, was the conductor of the New York Philharmonic. Anyway, you need to go discover who he is if you don't know. There was an interview, I can't remember if it was back in the 70s or 80s, but they asked him in this interview, what piece do you absolutely hate to perform? And I remember his answer was Bruckner's 8th Symphony. And he began to take the interviewer over to his piano and began to play the symphony from memory on the piano, which is, written for strings and orchestra, and all that. And he did a piano reduction of it on the spot. And as he's playing it, he's able to break it down and say why he doesn't like it. That is absolute genius. To not only dislike something, but to have studied it so much, you know every little bit of why you don't like it. And I think that when it comes to firearms, it should be exactly the same way. That's just the way that I approach things. When I don't like something, I want to know why. Why don't I like it? Instead of just go, I don't like it and whatever. I love knowledge and to know everything there is to know about the subjects that I'm interested in. So even if it's a gun that I'm not interested in, but because it's all under the umbrella of firearms, I gotta know everything there is to know about it. All right, so our next comment comes from Kay Bauer, who says, I look at reviews of guns I'm interested in to see features of the firearm as well as potential problems. Nothing beats actually handling the gun yourself to see how well it fits you. And that's also another fantastic comment. One of the things too about buying a gun is you're not always able to try them out. You can't give them a test drive. Sometimes a range isn't going to have the newest and latest thing because they'd rather sell it than put it into their rental fleet. So sometimes you do have to kind of go off what people say on YouTube, and the best you can do is just handle the firearm personally. But he's absolutely correct. Our next comment comes from Sean White. And I really like the fact that many of my top-rated comments are from people that have commented and been the top-rated comments in the past. I love how everybody participates in these week after week. Sean White says, when it comes to gun-related stuff, I only buy tried and true stuff. I'm not buying the new Whiz Bang 3000 because it's new unless it's based off a tried and true design. If you were to look at my collection, it would be pretty boring. Glock and Colt is what I own the most of because they are proven systems at decent cost. I don't need any justification that TDP, Colt, or G19 is good. The 6mm ARC is the only thing I jumped on board with from the get-go because external ballistics speak for themselves. I'm glad I did. Well, there you go. This is another approach. People will constantly go back to what they know, which I also think can be good or bad. Because if you only go back to what you know and what you're comfortable with, sometimes you don't get exposed to something that might be better. I've talked about this in previous questions of the week where we talked about pistols and rifles that the military has adopted, where sometimes I think we become fanboys of particular designs, like the 1911. The 1911 is an absolutely fantastic work of art. It is mechanical genius at its finest. However, there's things that have come after it that might be better and might be more innovative, that people will foo-foo just because it's not a 1911. Not that there's anything wrong with a 1911, but time marches on. Just because something's new doesn't mean it's bad, doesn't mean it's good, but it's good to try out new stuff. All right, so our next comment comes from Matt Moore, one of the guys, speaking of letting me borrow guns, Matt lets me borrow all of his amazing guns. He says, I don't just buy a firearm, I research everything I can about a particular one before I make any buying decisions. How I spend my discretionary quote-unquote fun money is carefully planned. Well, I know what Matt does for a living, and I know that when it comes to his financial choices, he's going to go the wise and the tried and true path of thinking about it before he spends it. I know that based off of what he does for a living, he's really good with money. I've also gotten to know Matt on a personal basis, and I'm so glad I get to call him my friend. Him and I think about stuff in very much the same way, where we're more intellectual than feelers. So we kind of joke about that in some of our text messages. And so I completely agree that we have to think about everything before we do it. Everything is a big chessboard ahead of us in life, and we can look and move all the different pieces. And when it comes to my gun buying choices, and I will say sometimes I have been wrong, like I bought a Special Weapons SW5 MP5 clone, piece of junk. I've had it destroyed because I'm having all the parts put on a new gun by TMP Outfitters, but that's a story for another day. So I have made bad choices and bad calls, but for the most part, I do try to plan out all of my buying choices, so I completely understand where Matt is coming from. I try not to go to the emotional side when it comes to buying a new gun. And finally, we got Gurr, who says, I generally make up my mind before making it to YouTube. I just come on here to watch people shoot it before I get a hold of it. And that's really interesting because for me, that's how I find out about new guns is YouTube. The channels that I watch, they're like, hey, Smith & Wesson's come out with this new gun, or this is something that's newly being imported, or whatever. That's how I find out about the guns. It's the only way I can find out about the guns because I don't subscribe to magazines. I really don't look at a lot of websites when it comes to new stuff. I mainly look at news sites when it comes to firearms, so I don't get to see the newest and latest, greatest stuff. It's only on YouTube where I get that. So he has to approach it from a different way. I'd be kind of curious to see how he discovers about new firearms before he goes on YouTube. But there you go. So that is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. Really interesting one this week, the most lopsided results I've ever had. And once again, I said, I'm going to kind of call BS on this one because I don't think everybody was honest. But I think if you truly look inside and reflect upon yourself, I think you'll discover that you're actually probably influenced by people on YouTube more than what you want to give yourself credit for, which is okay, as long as you can admit it, right? So there you go. So if you enjoy this, please check out my poll for next week, which will be released at the same time this video is released. Go over to my YouTube page, go to my community tab, check out the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. I believe it's going to be number 14, and I will also put a link to that particular post in the description below so you guys can go vote, comment, and like other people's comments as well. So there you go. So what do you guys think about the results of this? Are you surprised, not surprised? Tell me in the comment section below. So as always, thanks for watching.